Despite it almost certainly being just about time to get out of here, and here meaning Las Vegas, now that the poker tournaments of the summer are a wrap, we're still here and we are still in the mix, cash game style. There's going to be a change of scenery in the very near future. First of all, it is definitely time to hop back into the games on WPT Global.
Aces in a bomb pot. We flop top set. Oh my goodness.
I don't think we want to slow down. Setting up a river jam.
That's quads, people. Cheers, everybody. Coffee and cards.
Incredible games to be found on WPT Global. You can use code Andrew. That will get you a deposit bonus code up to $1,200, matching your initial deposit if you use code Andrew. You will find me in those games, both in the No Limit Texas Hold'em and in the Pot Limit Omaha, splashing around heavily. That is the first item on the agenda. Item number 2 is there is a meetup game. We're heading back to Graton Casino in Northern California. You might remember Graton Casino from such vlogs where I flew the drone inside the hotel room.
This could be a terrible idea.
It is an incredibly special hotel room. I believe they are spoiling us further. I will be paying it forward by splashing around in the meetup games there. Details will be right here for both the meetup game on the 3rd and the tournament that we're gonna play in on the 4th. It'll be great to get back to Graton Casino. It's been a few years, looking forward to that. Need to recap a session real quick that took place at the 510, 1500 max buy-in. That's how much we're in for. Let's go. Let's check it out. First hand off the deck, yours truly in the big blind. Action folds around to the button and raises up to $30. Small blind folds, we look down at ace, jack of hearts in the big blind. Better believe we're 3-betting this one out of the blinds versus a button open. We make it $150 to go and that player calls. 6 deuce deuce rainbow should help nobody typically. Also interesting is that I think on this type of a board, lots of hands will be able to peel pretty widely. A down bet is okay. I don't think we want to discount too deeply though. I make it $140 to go and my opponent calls. Turns to 5 diamonds, second diamond board very much not in our favor, especially with this holding in particular. I check it and my opponent puts out a bet, but it's not very big. It's 180 bucks. I'm gonna peel here. That's a cheap price. He could be going for a cheap bluff. Lots of hands, as mentioned, can peel on this flop. King queens, king jack suited, jack 10 suited, 9-10 suited, all sorts of stuff that ace jack is still ahead of. So I call the 180, we're off to a river. Pretty favorable for us. Offsuit ace, I check it. This time my opponent waves the white flag. He checks it back and we roll it over for the win. He mucks his hand. So, you know, perhaps some chance we were ahead there on the turn. We're losing sometimes, but we're getting a pretty good price and our outs appear to be live here. Drag it in. Approximately 1 orbit later, a very significant hand of poker took place. Player under the gun makes it 30 to go. Player on his left calls, and we look down at pocket kings in the small blind. Bet your sweet, sweet ass we're 3-bet. I make it $180 to go, and the big blind starts thinking before putting out the cold call. Calls the 180. The under the gun player calls. The under the gun plus 1 player calls. We shed nobody. We're going 4 ways to a flop that comes down queen high. Queen 7-3 with 2 spades. We do have a spade in our hand if that matters. I'm gonna c-bet here. There's definitely more connected, less favorable flops for us than this one, so I'm gonna put out a wager. I bet 250 bucks. Player who put out that cold call, the big blind makes the call, and the other 2 players fold. Turn is the deuce of hearts, second heart. 2 flush draws on board now. So it's a matter of continuing to fire away or go for the trap, which is what I decided to do. Honestly, I'm not exactly sure what to do in this spot versus this player who's cold calling and calling down on my direct left. I do decide to check it, and interestingly is that my opponent checks it back here. So how many traps is he gonna have with a hand like pocket queens with 2 flush draws on board? I would say not too many traps. Feel like we got the best hand here, and the river is essentially a brick. It's an offsuit 5, so yes, there's a potential straight out there. Maybe some random 2 pairs, but that seems extremely unlikely in a 3-bet pot that was checked through on the turn. Seems like we often have the best hand here. Do we want to fire away or do we want to go for value versus a hand like pocket jacks? And if we do, what sizing? Pretty unsure here, but considering that this is a 3-bet multi-way pot, there was a C-bet and a call. As mentioned, $1,500 max buy-in in this game. And with all this money in the middle, if we ever have any bluffs here, I think we want to put maximum pressure on such hands as pocket jacks, pocket tens, etc. So I decide to wager the rest of my chips, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,400 effective, ship it all in there, and my opponent snap calls. That, my friends, is not going to be a very good sign. I roll it over, and sure enough, my opponent shows us pocket aces. So, the ultimate cooler in the heat, the maximum heat of Las Vegas desert in late July provides the setting for the ultimate cooler situation. Kings versus aces. Is this dramatic enough for you people? I hope so, but it is unfortunately the not great form of drama, which results in us losing a bunch of money. You do hate to see it. You hate to see the cooler go against us, but these things happen, and I'm not sure there's going to be any way where we're going to be able to get away from this hand. Even if my opponent puts in the 4-bet pre-flop, we're not getting away. If he decides to bet on the turn, we're not getting away. If he decides to raise the flop, we're probably not getting away. So it just kind of sucks overall. And sometimes these things happen in poker. Pick up the pieces, try and move it along. On to the next hand. All right, we have moved off of the must-move game into a main game, hoping for some better situations in this main game. And in this hand, the early position player raises it up to $30. We're in the small blind looking down at ace-5 suited, which is one of the premium pre-flop bluffing hands to choose from, and I'm going to do so. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet this one out of the small blind. $140 to go, and my opponent thinks for a little bit before making the call. Off to the streets. 8-7-3, 2 clubs, 1 spade. Definitely going to C-bet here. Don't want to down bet for same reasons as mentioned in the first hand. I bet $150, and my opponent thinks before making the call. Turn is a fantastic card. Turn is the king of spades, which should nail our range. And not only that, but gives us some very fine, premium, sweet equity. I'm gonna go ahead, continue firing here. Don't need to go too large, I don't think. Even though this is a great card for our range and gives us a bunch of equity, it's an overcard of the board, and I think we're gonna use it as a bluff card sometimes, if not very, very often, like we are here. So I'm gonna go ahead and wager, not huge, $220, and my opponent starts thinking before he finds the fold. So the small wager, small-ish wager on the turn, gets it done. Efficient bet sizing, efficient bluffing, that's the name of the game. Take this one down. All right, in this hand, we have moved over to yet another main game. We've table transferred off of that last table, and this table is an enjoyable one because it features not only Jamin Burton, who perhaps is the most creative of the poker bloggers on all of YouTube, it also features a good buddy of mine named Spraggy, Benjamin Spragg on my direct left. This hand happens to involve that very human being, one of my favorite people in all of poker, and it is a spicy one indeed. Action folds around to me, looking down at ace-8 of diamonds in the cutoff, obviously raising it. I make $30 to go before Spraggy on the button on my direct left puts in the 3-bet up to $80. Spraggy, of course, is as capable as they get. He is a fantastic poker player. Granted, he normally plays tournaments, but he played cash games before that. Fantastic poker player nonetheless. He's very capable, as mentioned. He puts in the 3-bet, and when it comes back around to me, I think 4-bet seems very reasonable here. Don't need to do this all the time with ace-8 suited. Want to try and pick and choose my spots versus opponents. Wouldn't do this versus an opponent who doesn't find all that many 3-bets in position. Spraggy, as mentioned, will definitely be capable of finding those 3-bets. So I go ahead, put in the 4-bet up to $200, and Spraggy somewhat unfortunately makes the call. I say unfortunate because when he calls there, chances are he is unlikely or less likely to have pre-flop bluffing hands, got himself something at least somewhat significant. So the two of us go heads up to a flop, 9-6-5 rainbow, 1 diamond, giving us gut shot plus backdoor flush draw. I'm gonna go ahead and c-bet on a lot of boards when I am the 4-better, almost all of them I would say. This board, I might find some checks more often than other boards, but considering we have the blocker to the straight and some good backdoor equity, with those factors going on, I'm gonna go ahead and include this exact flop in my c-betting range here. Go ahead and bet 1/4 pot, $100, toss it out there, 1 black chip, and Spraggy pounces on it, puts in the raise right away. We hate it. It's a flop that's going to hit his range, I think, more often than ours, so a raise on this flop makes a lot of sense, but with our Gut shot as mentioned, plus that backdoor nut flush draw. We're gonna have to make the call versus his raise, which is 280, 270, 280, one of those. Gonna have to toss in the call. Turn card is as beautiful as we could ask for. Not the 7 of diamonds, it is a red 7 though. It is the 7 of hearts giving us a straight in a 4-bet pot. If Spraggy is raising this flop, I think he's going to feel encouraged enough on this turn card to go ahead and continue barreling with both his bluffs and his strong hands. So I'm gonna slip it over to him, I check it, and he does not disappoint. He bets $330 here. I don't think we want to raise here because if we have a hand like we are representing pre-flop, such as aces, kings, something like that, it doesn't make any sense to go ahead and raise here. It's going to be interesting to try and find some bluffs there as well. There's just not that many of them. I'm going to go ahead, toss in the call. We're off to a river card, which completes the backdoor hearts, but in a 4-bet pot, we're just not going to be worried about that. I go ahead, check it over to Spraggy once more, and he empties the clip. Fires out for the rest of his stack, which is about $1,300 or so. We have nothing whatsoever to think about. We have a straight. We're giving him all the money if he happens to have a flush. Go ahead and snap call, and he says, oh no, I have a set, which is just an absolute filthy chain of developments here. We roll it over, we show him the bad news, and he goes ahead and mucks his hand, telling us that he has pocket 9s in this spot. Top set, runs into the gutter that gets there on the turn, and he cannot fill up on the river, which is just an absolute filthy hand, as mentioned. Just a very sick one. And to make matters worse, not for me, but for Spraggy, we've got Jamin Burton on the other side of the table singing the Star-Spangled Banner, the national anthem of the United States of America, every time Spraggy loses a hand. Maximum pain and punishment for our good friend Spraggy, all the way from the UK, hanging out here at the Bellagio with his good buddy Andrew, and this is how he gets treated. Unbelievable. We find some run good here on this table. We do not get all the way out of the hole, unfortunately. We lose some hands back, some less eventful hands than this one, bleed a little bit back. So we get into this game for $3,700. We cash out $2,542. We lose $958 in this 5-10 game at the Bellagio, but we do have ourselves a clip of Spraggy rebuying in the game, seeing that we're filming him in his demise, in his despair, and gives us this look. I'm sorry, Spraggy. I am very sorry. I apologized in the moment. I am apologizing now, here after the fact on YouTube. Please forgive me. Please love me. I love you. I hope we can still be friends. He did have a very, very small piece of me in that main event. All right, that brings us to the Wynn Las Vegas. It is time for poker. Let's go see what's going on back there in the Wynn poker room. Let's see if we can cooler somebody. Hopefully it's somebody other than Spraggy. Wish me luck.
You guys remember how back in the day I used to try and find the loudest possible location to sit at, order myself a beverage, and go over some hands of poker and just get the worst audio of all time? This is a throwback to those days. Cheers. From the Carousel Bar at the Plaza Las Vegas, brand spanking new bar. I went with the Filthy Vegas Bloody Mary. Cheers. It is 8:49 in the PM. Typically not Bloody Mary consumption time. Playing 6-handed here at the Wynn Poker Room. Playing 5, 10, 20. Straddle was on basically right away, and short-handed for most of the evening. Looking down a King 10 of spades from under the gun. We're gonna go ahead and raise this up to $50, and the player on my direct left makes it $150 to go. Folds back to me. Better believe we're calling with 40% of a royal. Toss it in, heads up to a flop. Jack 5-4 with 1 spade. Jack of spades in particular. I check it and my opponent down bets, C-bets for $110. When my opponent down bets in this spot and that king and that 10 wrapping around that jack of spades, I think it presents an opportunity to do some fun things. I'm gonna check raise this one. Don't need to go too big here with it being such a dry looking board. I make it $280 here, which I would probably size similarly if I happen to have pocket 5s or pocket 4s in this spot. My opponent thinks about it for a little while before letting it go. Insignificant hand on the surface. I think it's a pretty fun one because a lot of times, especially in my early days of poker, I would basically never check raise a dry looking flop like this one. 2 factors, 3 to a royal, as well as him down betting on the flop. Thank you. Water is important. It's like 107 degrees out here. If you were to bet bigger on this flop, I probably would not check raise. Can't blame him though. Down betting is all the rage. It's a dry looking board. Anyway, we win this one with our king high. I get dealt king 10 of diamonds in the very next hand off of the deck. I think it's a sign getting king 10 suited in back-to-back hands. Of course, we're gonna play it. And of course, we lose $100. There's no such thing as a sign in poker, you guys. Unless I see another one. For sure, the most significant hand of the session was this one. We're playing 7-handed in this hand, and there's a king that gets exposed pre-flop. Hijack goes ahead and raises it up to $50, folds over to us in the small blind. Guess what we have, people? Good guess, pocket aces, what a beauty. Getting a 3-bet here to $220, folds back to the initial raiser in the hijack position, who gives that beautiful, sweet news, puts in a 4-bet up to $550. We're about $2,000 effective, somewhere in that neighborhood, and we're out of position in the small blind. So I think when we are in position facing a 4-bet, a lot of times you might see me put in the smooth call. I don't think that's gonna be the case when we're out of position as often. With the king being exposed, it makes it a little bit less likely that he has ace-king. Us having 2 aces makes it especially less likely. Seems like he's gonna have pocket queens or pocket jacks here a lot of the time. Is he gonna find a fold with those hands? Impossible to know for sure, but it does feel like more of a cooler situation, so I'm gonna go ahead and 5-bet rip it in here. Stick it in for about $2,000 effective. We get great news. My opponent doesn't even think about it. Snap call. I show him the bad news, and he says, wow, it's gonna be tough for me to hit a set, because he does in fact have pocket kings. It is the ultimate cooler. It's the flip side of what happened at the Bellagio. Flop comes out all spades. It's all good, because even though he has a spade, we have an ace of spades in our hand. Turns an ace means he's drawing dead. I wish I could say it's all good news. Unfortunately, it was all downhill after that. I bluffed off a large amount of money, essentially all of my winnings from that hand, in a hand when we were playing 3-handed poker at about 4 in the morning at the Wynn. It was beyond hand recording time for me. Once it gets into the wee hours, I sort of lose the strength to do everything. To vlog and compete at the same time is a lot. It's a race spot. We're in there with the 6-4 of hearts. The clock comes down at Jack 5-4 with 1 heart. My opponent c-bets. I decided to take this opportunity to raise here with bottom pair. I think it's good to have some bottom pair raises as our semi-bluffs, especially when we have 2 backdoors to go along with that bottom pair. I raise it up here on the flop and my opponent 3-bets it. Seems either incredibly strong or incredibly bluffy. I'm not sure what to make of it, but we do have a bunch of equity, possibly. Of course, we're dead versus a set essentially, but we've still got backdoor equity. I'm gonna toss in the call in position, see what happens here. Turn is a 3, which all things considered is a pretty good card, and now he checks it over to us. The most obvious straight draw has come in here on this card, and we have a 6, which gives us an open-ended straight draw, as well as a blocker to those potential straights. So I put on a bet here, my opponent check calls. The river is another 5. Not sure if that's a good card or a bad card. It's not a great card for the hands where we're repping because it makes it less likely that we flop the set, but it also makes it less likely that he has a set on the flop that he was 3-betting with. He checks in, I bet $820. My opponent thinks for a little while before jamming all in, which is just very unfortunate news. We torch off the money here, we have to fold, he doesn't show. So we get adventurous there in a 3-handed poker game with a 6-4 suited at 4 in the morning, dust off the profits, and that is a sad ending because the game breaks a little bit after that. We were up about $1,800 to high point, and we finished minus $250 or so. So I mentioned in that last hand that it is very difficult to be creative and competitive at the same time. This is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. If you look at my older videos, if you have been a fan of this channel for several years, you notice that the earlier videos, they were a lot more vlog style and less poker vlog style. There was a lot more creativity, I would say, a lot more day in the life, rather than just a recap of a poker session. I would love to do more of that sort of thing, more of this sort of thing, taking you to a very unreasonable location with very unreasonable audio and talking about poker hands. It's tough to like try and move up in stakes, try and play high stakes, try and study, try and compete, while also trying to keep those creative juices flowing. We'll see what happens. I think it's always better to do rather than to say when you're creating content. So I probably should have just done rather than said in this video, but we'll see what happens. First things first, I need to get even playing this video poker game. That or lose more money, we'll see.